Hey guys, it's Vicky here. Let's talk Fear the Walking Dead. Alright, so I know that this video is extremely late. This episode aired 2 Sundays ago, and I'm very late for it. But as you guys can see, I finally have my Fear the Walking Dead backdrop. I didn't want to do any more Fear the Walking Dead videos until I got the appropriate backdrop, because it just didn't feel right doing it with any other show's backdrop. That's why it's late. Hopefully I can get back in the schedule for the next few episodes. And yeah, this is my review for Season 7's Episode 2. This episode is titled 6 Hours, and if you guys have not watched that episode yet, I highly suggest you do so before watching this video, since I will be deep diving into every single scene for this episode. And just to avoid major spoilers, go watch the episode first, and then come back here to see if you agree or disagree with what I have to say. Another thing I really want to say before getting into the review of this episode is that I want to put a major trigger warning for this episode, mainly because this episode is very heavy on the themes of suicide and the loss of a child. So if any of that makes you uncomfortable in any way, shape, or form, I highly suggest you to stop watching this video. I don't want any of you guys to feel uncomfortable while watching my videos. I want you to feel okay. I want you just to relax and enjoy yourselves. So if any of that triggers you, I won't be going into the subject matter too deeply, but because this episode, it is heavy on that on those two themes, I just want to put that out there that I will be talking about it, even if I'm not going to be going too deep into those topics. And with all that being said, let's get straight into it. The episode starts off with baby Morgan crying in the submarine, waking up Morgan and Grace. As baby Morgan is hungry, Grace goes out to scavenge for food, in particular for powdered milk. She comes across an empty store and finds cans of baby formula. However, before she can scan them for levels of radiation, she hears people coming into the building and Grace quickly hides. Once the people leave, Grace comes out of hiding and scans the cans. Unfortunately, the levels of radiation in the cans are too high. She returns back to the submarine empty-handed. Alright, so right away when we see Grace, we can tell that there's something really off about her. Like the way that she looks at Morgan holding baby Morgan. I know they call her Mo, but I'm just more comfortable calling her baby Morgan just because baby Morgan. And when she's looking at them, there's a look in her eyes that seems very, very distant. And there was just something really off about how she was looking at them, and then when she was going to scavenge for food, she announces her presence in this supposedly empty store. But it was kind of odd because in the apocalypse, you don't know what kind of people there are going to be out there. You don't want other people that you don't know to know that you are there, so when she screamed out, like, is anybody there? And when she was making a lot of noise, it just didn't really make much sense to me until the end of the opening minutes when she started crying and she basically was like, I don't want to be here anymore. Like, she has hit that level of depression and grief, especially because she just lost her own child. And so I feel like that was definitely like a theme for this entire episode, and it is the theme for this entire episode. And it's just, what didn't make sense to me at the very beginning really did make sense afterwards, if that makes any sense. And I feel like Grace is like, she's going through something that, well, she's never gone through before. Like, she's gone through a very heartbreaking trauma, and even though she says she doesn't want to be here anymore, it just, her actions throughout this entire episode don't exactly say that. Like, she has like a self-conflict, because when she's hiding, and I don't know if this was intentional on Grace's part or not, but when she heard the people coming into the store, she pulled the shelf down, but I don't think that she intentionally was going to break the shelf to hide under it, and that's exactly what she did, but I don't think that was actually intentional. And if she really did want to die to these people who came in, then I don't know why she hid. So, like, that's why I think that it was a very big conflict between, well, her and herself, actually. Because she says that she wants to die, but then at the same time, her actions are saying completely different things. And a small part in the opening minutes, when Grace was hiding in the shelf, and, well, okay, that was this kind of one cute part when, right before the people came in, Grace saw the rat, and she was just like, shoo. I found that kind of cute, but that's probably only me. But then when she was hiding under the shelf, and the people just came in and were looking for whatever they were looking for, the rat climbed onto the shelf and was crawling towards Grace. And the first thing I thought of was, oh no, she's going to get the plague, because that's what we saw in, I forgot which episode it was, but it was the episode where Dwight and Al were in that office building, and that was the episode that Dwight found Sherry. And I was worried that the bubonic plague might come back, but I really don't, well, okay, I really hope so. I don't know what the writers are really trying to think, but that really kind of brought me back to that episode in season 6, and I was just worried, and I hope I'm the only one who thought that, and let's just hope the plague is over, since I don't think they have any antibiotics to take care of that right now. And the very last thing I want to say about these opening minutes, the last scene where Grace is, well, after she finished crying and basically venting to absolutely nobody, maybe except for the walker on the ground, when she was outside and looking at the walker on the ground, I was really worried that she was going to kill herself right then and there, just because of the way she looked at it. Like, she looked at the walker and she paused as if she was thinking about, I'm going to let it bite me right now. I'm happy that she just walked past it. I don't know if that's actually what was going through her mind, but from the context of her words, it might as well have been. And I don't know, that was just a really worrying moment for me, but I really hope Grace makes it through the entire season, just because I really like Grace. I really like her. Grace returns back to the submarine, and baby Morgan is still crying due to her hunger. It's Morgan's turn to go out to look for food, and Grace is left back at the submarine with baby Morgan for the next 6 hours. Now, I really like that Morgan basically explains why this episode is called 6 hours, since they can only go out there for 6 hours. Grace did the math, and they can only be out there for 6 hours, no longer than that, and I really like it when they incorporate the episode title into the actual episode. So I really like those little small details. I'm weird like that. And just before Morgan leaves the submarine to go out to scavenge for food and like baby formula for baby Morgan, he tells Grace to try to sing to her, since that's what used to calm his own son down when he was a child, or when he was a baby. But Grace doesn't listen to him at all, and she's straight out refusing to do that. And I think that really stems from her losing her own child, because I feel like Grace really wanted, or she was really looking forward to lulling her own daughter to sleep, and it just really hurts her, and it breaks her heart that she will never be able to do that for her own daughter. And I'm pretty sure there's like a huge trauma there, like it'll bring her to absolute tears if she does it to someone else's kid when she can't do it to her own. Well, her own blood kid, since I'm pretty sure baby Morgan is now Morgan and Grace's child, whether they like it or not. And when Grace gets the tape player for baby Morgan, and she basically just like calms down and is soothed by the music, I found it really cute that like this is, you can't control this type of thing, especially because it's a baby. They're just there. They don't even know they're being filmed. But when baby Morgan stops crying, she's not looking at Grace. I'm pretty sure she's looking behind the camera, and like she's looking at her real parents who are on the background, just like calming her down, being like, hey, stop crying, you're okay. And I don't know, I just found that like a really cute detail, even though it's I wouldn't necessarily call it a flaw, just because you can't control a crying infant. They don't know that they are being filmed. They don't know stage directions. So I'm not blaming her whatsoever. I just found that really, really cute. And I also want to point out the amazing symbolism in this scene, because it's when Grace brings the tape player and she plays the song on the tape, and she's constantly apologizing. Like, Grace is saying, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, but then the song that is playing on the cassette is called, I believe, Baby Please Forgive Me, or something like that. And, okay, maybe it's not like symbolism, maybe it's just like a direct parallel, or whatever the term would be. I just really like that they included that. Like, they could have played literally any song, but they decided to play that song, and it was just, I like these two kind of linking things, okay? I like these things. Morgan comes back to the submarine and tells Grace that he wasn't looking for formula. Instead, he's been working on a way to get away from the contaminated area. He brings her and baby Morgan out to a car he had prepared to leave. Okay, so when Morgan brings Grace and baby Morgan out into outside of the submarine, and he explains that the air inside this car that he built and prepared is as clean as the air inside the submarine. And I explained this in the previous episode's review. I don't know anything about cars, okay? So, like, I'm probably most likely very wrong about these things, but I'm not sure if that would really work. Like, I'm going to assume that Morgan built, like, air filters for this car so that, like, whatever toxic air from the outside that gets into the car would be filtered out and make it as clean as air inside the submarine, like he said, but I don't know if that would actually work. If it really does, please let me know in the comments below. Educate me, please, because I really don't know if that would work. And it's just, I was very confused. And I would think that when he opens the trunk to put baby Morgan inside, baby Morgan's safe. Like, she has, like, this contraption around her, so, like, I'm not gonna doubt that, since he said he made it out of something inside the submarine. But once he opens the trunk, I'm pretty sure, logically, all of the contaminated air would go inside the car, and they would probably have to wait, like, quite a while or something to get inside the car without their masks, just to make it safe. But at the same time, like I said, I don't know how these things work. I really don't know. Like, I would imagine that they would need to have their masks on inside the car for a little while and then take off their masks, but as we see in the next scene, they are already inside the car without their masks on, and they're just looking at the map. But I don't know how long they waited, or if they even waited at all, but that's just a little detail I wanted to point out, because I really want to know if it's actually safe inside that car. Also, Rufus seems to be doing great, and he has absolutely no masks on, so I'm guessing that dogs and horses are perfectly fine and they're immune to any types of toxicity in the air or radiation, since Rufus seems to be having a time of his life. Throughout their trip, they had been playing music on the cassette tape, and it gets to a recording of Grace's voice, and then the song In Dreams begins to play, causing Grace to panic and try to get the tape to stop. As the two are distracted from trying to get the tape to stop, the car crashes and one of the wheels ends up bent. Morgan mentions that he saw a body shop nearby, and Grace decides to go off on her own to open the doors, so Morgan can move the car in. Morgan stops her, and Grace finally tells him that she doesn't want to keep going on, and hasn't since the blast. Unfortunately, before anything can be decided between them, two people come out, holding them at gunpoint and telling them that baby Morgan is theirs. When Grace is basically begging Morgan to help her get the tape to stop playing, since she's literally just freaking out, you can just see it on Morgan's face that at first he doesn't know what's going on, but then, like, when he looks at her, he realizes that Grace is still haunted by the loss of her own child. And, like, I don't really know why Morgan didn't think of this before, but I'm glad that he was able to realize it afterwards. But he wasn't exactly being the most supportive emotionally, but it's Morgan. he doesn't really know how to deal with losses either, I guess, since, as we've seen, Morgan does tend to go crazy whenever he loses someone close to him. And then when Grace decides to walk off to find the body shop, she takes off her mask. And that's what basically triggers Morgan to just run up to her and be like, hey, what the hell are you doing? Like, why are you, like, put your mask back on? And then that's when she tells him, like, she just basically wants to die. And, like, her plan was to get to the body shop and just open the doors for him, and just to make it easier for baby Morgan and Morgan to just keep on going. But then, in my honest opinion, her taking off the mask was more counterproductive. Mainly because if she, like, yes, I know that Grace has done her own research on this stuff, but then at the same time, she can't know how her body reacts to these toxic fumes for a long period of time. Like, if she kept her mask on, she could have still done the same thing and just walked to the body shop, opening the doors, and, like, just let them do what they need to do. It's just, I think that for her taking off the mask, that was more for a dramatic effect, more to trigger Morgan to be like, yo, what are you doing? Just put your mask back on, we'll talk. And I think that that was the main point of her taking off her mask, because, okay, I don't know anything about, like, toxic fumes or anything like that, but there was still a chance that she could die within minutes of inhaling these fumes, I would think, since they are toxic, they are poisonous, they are not kind to living beings, except for horses and dogs, apparently. It was, to me, it just did not make any sense. It was very counterproductive in my own opinion, and, like, if I'm wrong, you can tell me, it's fine. If there's, like, some kind of, like, scientific explanation that, oh, it won't actually harm her. If that's the case, why are they even wearing masks in the first place? But it just didn't make sense to me why she would just take off the mask and shorten her own lifespan. Yes, I know that she wants to die, but you can't, like, she wants to help them get to the body shop. What if she died before getting to the body shop? Then she's not helping anybody. Now, I'm sure everybody already knows this. Well, those of you who have watched the episode, which you should have if you're already watching this video, the people that held Morgan and Grace at gunpoint, they're the same people that Grace saw in the store earlier in the episode, in the opening minutes. And, like, when the woman in this couple, she basically looks through the windshield or one of the windows of the car and she's like, Mommy's here. I got a really eerie feeling, but then I kind of felt really bad for her at the same time, mainly because just from that one line, you can tell that something happened to her own child. And, like, obviously this would be like, this woman is a parallel to Grace, where they both lost their own children in this devastating apocalypse. The couple allows Morgan and Grace to take the car into the body shop to fix the bent wheel. Grace tells Morgan that the people holding them hostage could be exposing baby Morgan to something worse, and that they have to get away from them. She also tells Morgan that she meant what she said earlier about not wanting to continue living, but she's not going to give up, especially not when Morgan and baby Morgan are in danger. Throughout their conversation, baby Morgan has begun crying, and the sound attracts walkers to the vicinity. Grace offers the tape player to the woman, B, and baby Morgan stops crying. They all discuss their plans, and they all agree that they need to get out of this place, and B reveals a place called Padre. The man, Fred, forces Morgan and Grace away from the car as Morgan had finished replacing the wheel, but before they can take the car with the baby Morgan inside, Morgan grabs the gun from Fred. Morgan is about to shoot B, who is behind the wheel, but Grace stops him to avoid damaging the car. Now, I feel like this couple, B and Fred, like, they are not actually bad people. They're not bad to the core. Like, they were doing things to survive. Like, they genuinely did believe that baby Morgan was their daughter, or is their daughter, Emma, and, like, they just wanted to get her back. They wanted to get her to a safe place, and obviously holding Morgan and Grace at gunpoint is not the best thing to do. Like, do I agree with that? Absolutely not. But they were doing things to survive, to save who they thought was their daughter, and, like, I don't feel like they were actually really bad people, because if they were, they could have just straight up killed Morgan and Grace and just like taken everything. But they did not do that, so I don't think that they're actually like absolutely bad villains. Like, throughout this entire episode, I feel like Grace has been going through a roller coaster of emotions since she's like, she wants to die. She keeps telling Morgan she doesn't want to go on, but then she does things to survive. And I'm 100% sure that that is because she wants to keep Morgan and baby Morgan safe. Her motherly instincts are just kicking in because, like, throughout this episode, I feel like Grace is definitely going through a roller coaster of emotions since she keeps telling Morgan she wants to die, she doesn't want to be here anymore, but then on the other hand, she is doing what she can to keep these two people alive. Like, I'm sad to say that if she was alone, she might have already tried to end her life already, and she might have already succeeded. I'm glad that that's not the case, but yeah, I feel like her only means to survive right now is to get both baby Morgan and Morgan to a safe place to make sure that they can survive, so that she can, I guess, for lack of a better word, die happy. And I don't really know how else to say it, but then I just really like that her maternal instincts to keep baby Morgan safe, they're really showing when they're being held in this hostage kind of situation, and she just wants the best for both baby Morgan and Morgan. Now, when they're discussing their plans of where to go and where to take baby Morgan for safety, Morgan, he mentions to Fred and Bee that their daughter could still be out there. Now, throughout this entire episode, I was always under the impression that their daughter, Emma, was the same age as baby Morgan. Like, she's an infant, or at least like she's just a baby, that she can't talk or walk or even crawl yet. And that was what I had in mind the entire time. So when Morgan's like, your baby could still be out there, your daughter could still be out there waiting for you to come back to get her, I'm like, what? How is that possible? Like, maybe Morgan was thinking she could be older, but then that wouldn't make sense since they've been talking about a baby this entire time. Or Morgan's just trying to play with their minds to be like, yeah, your baby's still out there somewhere. You don't have to take ours. Like, maybe he's trying to play mind games since he knows that they're kind of already delusional to a degree, since they believe that baby Morgan is theirs. He might be able to convince them that their baby is still out there breathing in toxic fumes and somehow still alive. It's just that one line really, really confused me. I don't know exactly what Morgan was planning. And yeah, that part just really, really confused me. If you guys have any other explanation as to why Morgan said what he said, please let me know, because I'm kind of at a loss. Only the explanation I can think of is Morgan was trying to make them think that a baby could actually survive on their own outside. Bee and Fred flee the body shop, but Morgan ends up shooting at the car, breaking the rear windshield, and the car stops. Morgan reaches the couple but is tackled by Bee, giving Fred a chance to take baby Morgan, and he runs away with her, but Grace chases after him. Morgan gets the upper hand with Bee, and he sees that her face is mutilated. He then helps her flee to a safer place to hide from the walkers. So when Morgan helped Bee up instead of shooting her when she was on the floor, and when he basically led her to safety, in my head I was like, this is not going to go well, mainly because it never goes well when Morgan helps his enemy. And I know that I said that Fred and Bee were not actually bad people. It's just Morgan's been screwed over by that in the past for like a lot of instances. One in particular would be when he let Teddy's henchmen live, and that screwed him over in so many ways when he should have just killed him right then and there. So when he had a chance, he had a very clear chance to kill Bee, and he didn't. And he's like, let's go. I was like, Morgan, kill her. Just kill her. Kill her. But then Morgan is whether to call him stupid, or he's just too nice, or he's just too naive that bad people can actually become good. Not that Bee and Fred are actually bad people. You know what I'm trying to say? Basically, in the situation, Morgan and Grace and baby Morgan were held at gunpoint by Fred and Bee. In that situation, Bee and Fred can be painted as the bad people, and you want to get rid of the bad people since they're trying to take your baby and they're trying to take your car so that they would leave you stranded. In that instance, they are bad. And in that instance, you kill them because they are showing a bad side of them. That's what I'm trying to get at. Fred and Bee tell Morgan and Grace that they only stopped them from going their way because they came from that direction, and that's how they ended up with the burns. They showed them a place on a map called Padre, and that they know it's safe. Grace suggests getting back to the submarine since it's no guarantee that Padre is actually safe. The four go back out to the car and Morgan changes another wheel when a car pulls up close to them. Grace and Fred take baby Morgan back inside, while Morgan stays outside with Bee and he shoots the man who comes out of the car. Now, when Morgan said to go out to change the wheel again, I was very confused because I thought that he already did that. I thought that he already successfully changed the wheel, but then when they went out, there was clearly a wheel, still bent, so I'm not sure when exactly that happened or how exactly that happened, since when Bee and Fred were kind of driving away from Morgan and he was shooting at the car, I don't remember ever seeing him shoot the wheel, and even if he shot at the wheel, that would never have made that big of a dent that I saw, and I don't recall them ever turning into anything that would have bent the wheel, so I'm a little bit confused of how the second wheel got bent. The first one was very, very obvious and very clear. They crashed into something. But how did the second wheel magically get bent? So when Morgan and Grace and basically everyone was outside to change the wheel, or basically just watch Morgan change the wheel, they didn't actually need to all be out there, now that I think about it. But when they were all out there to change the wheels, Morgan and Grace had their masks on. And I applaud that. I like that. I like that they kept the masks on. But then when Morgan went back into the car to snipe the dude that drove up to them, he took off his mask. And I'm not really going to complain about that just because his vision was most likely obstructed by the mask, so he wanted to get a clear shot, and I'm perfectly fine with that. I'm just waiting for who gets sick in the future, the next few maybe episodes, who gets sick from the toxic fumes that they were breathing in. Mainly because if there is absolutely no repercussions to taking off their masks and breathing in these toxic fumes, why do they even have masks on in the first place? Because it seems like no one's really being affected by these fumes. This is under the assumption that in the future episodes, neither of these people, Morgan and Grace, do not get sick. And that would honestly really bother me, just because it's if the fumes were okay to breathe in for minutes at a time, why are you wearing masks? Why are masks necessary? That does not make sense to me. Grace really should, I'm thinking, Grace was peeking at the window. It was an open window, and she could have breathed in those fumes. So I think Grace has a better chance of being sick in the future because she was more exposed. She was the first one to be exposed when she dramatically took off her mask in the first place, and then Morgan did, but then he put his mask back on because in that instance, Morgan is pretty smart when it comes to not breathing in toxic fumes. So, if anything, I do think Grace would be the one to get sick from the toxic fumes. If she doesn't, what are the use of masks, apparently, since they are immune to toxic fumes from radiation, I guess. That's not to say that I want any of them to die, though. Okay, just putting that out there. I would just want the writers to have continuity and a reason for them to wear masks, because if they are going to have these toxic fumes, if they're going to wear these masks, at least have a purpose for them in the story. Please? Morgan then hears growling coming from Fred and Bee's luggage they had placed in the trunk earlier, and he finally realizes what had happened to their daughter. He quickly warns Grace, and she ends up shooting Fred, who was about to smother baby Morgan. Grace then picks up baby Morgan and begins to sing to her, soothing her and getting her to stop crying. Morgan rams the car into the horde of walkers surrounding the building Grace is in, and they leave the small town, but not before realizing that the man who Morgan had shot had disappeared. I really liked that Grace was able to overcome her, for lack of a better word, fear of singing to baby Morgan, just because, like, I feel like that was a really, really pivotal moment for Grace. Like, she was able to overcome that feeling, and, like, of course it's also, like, a motherly instinct for Grace, since if baby Morgan continues crying, walkers will continue to swarm them and eventually get in, and they will both be killed. So, like, even though it is like a motherly instinct thing, I still really like that Grace was able to step up and do the thing that she dreaded with this baby, since she wanted to, well, in my mind, she wanted to do it with her own child. Now, when they're leaving the town, Morgan says that he doesn't feel right leaving Bee behind, but then Grace says that Bee wants to spend the rest of her moments with her husband. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure her husband is dead, since, I don't know about you guys, but I think I did see Grace shooting Fred in the head, so I'm pretty sure he's dead. Unless I completely saw wrong, but, like, she doesn't have anybody anymore, so it's like, unless she's okay with just spending the rest of her moments with her dead husband, I guess, but that's not exactly what Grace made it sound like. So when Morgan and Grace were on their way riding back to the submarine, they have this pretty deep conversation, and one thing that Morgan says that really, really, really gets to Grace is that she's not replacing Athena with baby Morgan, and you can just see it in Grace's face when he says that. Like, his words really hit her deep, and I think she needed to hear that, just because she wasn't only going through a loss, or, like, she wasn't only going through grief. She was going through, like, a feeling of tremendous guilt, because she's supposed to be taking care of her daughter, but she lost her, and now she's taking care of another child. Like, she just feels a lot of regret and resentment, and that stems from the guilt that she's feeling, because I think that she, deep down inside, she was feeling that she was trying to replace Athena, but then she really wasn't, if that makes any sense. And just Morgan telling her that, it just feels like that was something she really, really needed to hear, and that really lifted a lot of the guilt, probably not all of the guilt off of her shoulders, but it really lifted a lot of it, and lifted a lot of burden off of her as well. One last thing that I want to mention for the scene. Why do they all have their masks off? As we saw in the previous scenes, Morgan had shot the rear windshield of this car, and then, yeah, they covered it with a sheet of plastic. I don't think they had the equipment to replace the rear windshield. If I completely missed that, I'm sorry, disregard this completely. But I did not see that they replaced the windshield. They only replaced 2 tires for some reason, and they did nothing with the rear windshield. To my knowledge, it should still be covered up by plastic. Now, again, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure the plastic that they covered, no matter how well they tried to seal it, there's going to be fumes that will go into the car. Why is no one wearing a mask though? Like, it can't be perfectly fine. Like, it's not going to keep out all the toxic fumes, even if you have Morgan's amazing air filters inside the car. And, like, if Morgan and Grace are okay, fine. Like, they're adults. Whatever. Like, if they're immune to it, they're immune to it. But baby Morgan is, like, she's not covered by her, like, contraption thing. She's breathing in the same air that Morgan and Grace are, and that does not make any sense to me. Like, the windows are shattered. Okay, not all the windows are shattered, but one of the biggest windows are shattered. It's letting in toxic fumes. It's only being covered by plastic, unless they did replace the windshield, which, to my knowledge, they did not. So that doesn't make sense. It did not make any sense, and I was just sitting there like, how are they alive? How are they breathing? How are they okay? When Morgan and Grace get back to the sub, they get greeted by Howard and his men trying to scavenge supplies. Howard makes Grace an offer to stay in Victor's tower, but Morgan is not invited. Grace refuses the offer, but Morgan tries to convince her and Howard to take her and baby Morgan to have a potentially safe place to stay. In the end, Grace refuses and Howard and his people leave with their supplies. I feel like the moment when Morgan stepped up and was like, can you take the baby and Grace with you so that they have a place to stay? Like, there was a look on Howard's face where he was like, you want me to what? It was skeptical because it feels like he was doubtful that Morgan actually had good intentions. And, like, I don't know exactly what Strand told Morgan or what Strand told Howard about Morgan. The look on Howard's face just kind of seemed like, are you the same guy that he told me about? Because it's like, I feel like Strand lied to Howard about how good of a person Morgan is. Like, Morgan always has good intentions. He's just really dumb sometimes, in my opinion, but he does have good intentions. And, like, he's not a selfish person, whereas Strand, he is... I like you, but he is not exactly a good person when it comes to being in a group. He's good surviving on his own because he is able to use those resources. But for Morgan, he is not exactly that selfish person where he doesn't care about his own safety. Rather, he would rather be on his own and know that his people are safe. If that makes sense. I'm going on a tangent. And for the timeline's sake, I'm going to assume that Howard came to the submarine after the 50-day mark of episode 1, where that took place after the blast. But we don't exactly have an indication of whether this was before or after, but I'm just going to say, to save my brain from hurting, this was after episode 1. Soon after, baby Morgan starts to cry, and Morgan and Grace scurry to find anything to feed her. She then starts crawling around on the ground, and that is when they find a hatch hiding cans and cans of food and supplies. Now, I don't really have much to say about the scene other than baby Morgan is really, really adorable, and Grace is absolutely adorable because I feel like her motherly instincts have finally began to come out, especially when she's just holding baby Morgan, like just having her sitting on her lap, and she's like, yeah, you did great, you were crawling, you were great. And then, like, it was just so freaking cute. And, like, I feel like this part was also kind of very indirectly foreshadowed, just because in the beginning, I think it was before when Morgan was about to drive off to the town, he said that they need some kind of win. I feel like finding this amount of food in the submarine after Victor's people had come to scavenge everything and were like, oh, there's nothing else here. They're not going to come back since, like, to them, they basically scoured everything. So they're not going to come back to be like, oh, let's take a second look. They're not going to do that. So I feel like this was definitely the win that they had mentioned before, but at the same time, that could be a really big stretch. The final scene of this episode is of the man Morgan had shot earlier. He returns to his fire with Rufus by his side and a very familiar box that reads Morgan Jones on the lid. The man opens it and takes out the head of the bounty hunter Ginny sent to kill Morgan in the previous season. The man then unmasks himself and apologizes to his twin brother for not being able to avenge him. Okay, first thing I kind of want to say is, why did Morgan not really care about Rufus, since Rufus is clearly not with Grace or Morgan anymore. He's with this new character, and yeah, why did Morgan really needs to care about the dog more? This was such a great way to end this episode, mainly because it's revolved around Morgan and Grace, and so they introduced this probably new villain, and you can tell that he's going to continuously go after Morgan, and it's just, I love that this was able to open up a completely new arc, since I only knew about the Civil War arc. Now we have a more, no offense, a more badass villain character, and I'm really looking forward to that. And I was surprised when I saw him too, because I was like, wait, that's the bounty hunter. What? Okay. When I remember that in the previous season, I'm gonna butcher the name, I'm sorry, I forgot how to say it, but email? Email? It sounds like email. But the bounty hunter, I knew that he had a brother because he mentioned it in the episode that he was in, but I didn't know that they were going to ride off of that, and I'm honestly very, very happy that they did. And yeah, I really liked how they ended the scene, and it's just so cool. I liked it a lot. All in all, I really enjoyed seeing the character development of Grace, where in the very beginning of the episode, she was very distant towards Morgan and baby Morgan, both Morgans. And then she just consistently became the mother that she was meant to be. And at the very end of it, not to say that this one episode healed her grief, and I'm pretty sure that's not possible to heal completely, but I'm sure that part of her was healed to a degree, and now that she finally does have hope, I really hope that they're not going to continue with her wanting to die and saying that she doesn't want to continue. I think that she's moved on past that mindset. At least I really hope that she did. And yeah, I liked it. I liked the character development and seeing Grace finally become an actual mother towards baby Morgan. I know that this episode may not be everyone's cup of tea, mainly because a lot of people may be watching this for more action-y sequences, but this episode was very character development based, but I still feel that this episode was very, very much needed, mainly because in the previous season, Grace had just lost her child, and I'm very glad that they had this episode to for lack of a better word, explore her pain, her heartbreak, and what she's going through, what she's going through in her mind. And I'm glad that they were able to let us see what she's going through and just have her develop her actual motherly instincts towards baby Morgan. So I feel this episode was 100% needed for Grace's character development, even for Morgan's character development, since he didn't exactly change throughout, but then he was there for Grace, and I feel their bond is just a lot stronger now because of the events in this episode. I also liked how they ended this episode with it wasn't a major cliffhanger, but it was still a pretty cool cliffhanger, and now you just think what exactly is going to happen to Morgan. Since in the previous episode we were also introduced to a group called the Stalkers, that strip walkers. So wow, we're going to have 3 villains, I think. There's going to be the Civil War, there's going to be a bounty hunter, and then there's going to be the Stalkers. We don't even know who runs the Stalkers. But this is going to be a very eventful season, I swear. This is going to be fun to watch. Now, I would rate this episode a 7 out of 10, mainly because of the character development and the cliffhanger at the end of the episode. I would have rated it higher if it wasn't for the multiple flaws that I kind of pointed out before, but that's just my take on it. I could also be completely wrong about a lot of the things that I said, mainly because I don't know anything about cars, I don't know anything about actual toxic fumes, and all of that scientific stuff I don't actually know about, but that's my take on it. Alright, so that was my review of episode 2 of season 7 of Fear the Walking Dead, 6 hours. If you guys agree with what I said or disagree with what I said, please let me know down in the comments below. If you guys enjoyed my video, please give me a thumbs up, and if you have not already subscribed to my channel and you would like to see future content of mine, please hit that subscribe button. I would really appreciate that. And I will see you guys in my next video. Thanks for watching. Bye!